Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole, a special short podcast episode from This and That Media. I'm Matthew Tepedino, and today I'm taking you on a guided tour through the vast constellation of UFO resources that I've spent years collecting and curating across my platforms. And after falling deep into the UFO rabbit hole and consuming hundreds of hours of content, I've distilled this extensive search for truth into its most essential components, all now available through my dedicated UFO website, thisandthatphenomenon.com. From my in-depth Substack essays to my carefully ranked documentary recommendations on Letterboxd, curated podcast playlists on Spotify, comprehensive YouTube collections, and master spreadsheet with thousands of videos, articles, and books organized by topic, I've created a roadmap for anyone wanting to explore this physics-defying mystery. And my goal today is not just to convince you that the phenomenon is real, but to showcase the premium resources that will let you decide for yourself whether we're witnessing alien visitors, suppressed free energy technology, or perhaps both. Consider this your orientation to the digital UFO library that I've built, the highlights of the most compelling revelations and media resources available on one of humanity's most persistent enigmas. And you'll note the resources on this cover page, going from left to right, some of the most profound documentaries, podcast episodes, articles, and news segments that transformed my understanding. We have the Joe Rogan episode 1315 with Bob Lazar, the documentaries Moment of Contact, The Phenomenon, The Lost Century, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers, the now famous 2017 New York Times article that exposed the Pentagon's secret UFO program, which served as a catalyst for much of the declassification in recent history, CNBC's news segment of declassified footage by the names of Fleer, Gimbal, and Go Fast, and the Joe Rogan episode 1976 with documentary connoisseur James Fox. Before getting into the outline of my previous presentation and the best resources that have shaped my understanding of the phenomenon, I feel it's important to share the moment that sparked my fascination with this subject matter. So, a few years ago, I had a chance conversation with my professor at Johns Hopkins, and she told me that she believes in UFOs and aliens because her brother was in the Air Force, and that the common belief in the Air Force is that UFOs are real and that aliens have been monitoring us for quite some time. And so, the reason I'm relaying this is because I realize it just takes one credible voice to pierce the veil of skepticism about UFOs. And once you actually begin examining the evidence, the depth and breadth of documentation makes it impossible to return to comfortable disbelief. And so this presentation traces my journey down this fascinating mystery and invites you all to come down this rabbit hole with me and examine the most compelling evidence that transformed my understanding of what could be possible. And for context, I wanted to mention a previous presentation I gave, which is also now available on YouTube, Seeking the Origin of UFOs, Aliens, Free Energy, or Both, through Project Blue Book, Roswell and the Tic Tac case, the UAP congressional hearings, Bob Lazar and anti-gravity propulsion, the free energy theory, Nikola Tesla, and the connection to the Great Pyramids. And in that 20-minute presentation, I shared what I considered to be the most compelling evidence of the UFO phenomenon, demonstrating that UFOs are real, they defy our current understanding of physics and technology, and left them to hypothesize whether they're indicative of alien visitors, suppressed free energy technology, or both. And so, in establishing the reality of UFOs, we must examine a comprehensive body of evidence spanning over 7 decades, beginning with the government's systematic investigation through Project Blue Book, continuing through pivotal cases like Roswell and the 2004 Tic Tac incident, and culminating in recent congressional hearings. A clear pattern emerges of craft demonstrating capabilities far beyond known human technology. And this section will methodically demonstrate that not only UFOs are unambiguously real, but that they exhibit technological capabilities that transcend our current understanding of physics, of aerodynamics, of propulsion systems. And so part one showed that UFOs are 100% real and they defy physics and technology as we currently understand. But part two is where things get spicy. If you think aliens are the conspiracy, wait till you start going down the free energy rabbit hole. And so this section explores the interconnected web of evidence suggesting that free energy technology has been repeatedly discovered and systematically suppressed throughout history, from Nikola Tesla's mysterious connection to the Great Pyramids and his thwarted attempts to provide wireless energy to the world, to the suspicious deaths of modern inventors like Stanley Meyer and his water-powered engine. A pattern emerges of technological breakthroughs being buried. And the Great Pyramids, alongside other megalithic mysteries and new geological findings, are beginning to suggest what many have theorized: the existence of an ancient, advanced, lost human civilization whose technological achievements may have surpassed our own. And when viewed alongside the classified UFO programs, the haunting possibility emerges that humanity may have lost a century of technological and spiritual advancement due to the deliberate suppression of transformative energy technologies. And so now I'm going to take you on a journey through some of the highlights on all my different platforms. We're going to start with Substack, which is where I publish my essays and articles analyzing various UFO cases and theories. I've written pieces on the Varginha incident, Project Blue Book, the congressional UAP hearings, a review on what I think is the most comprehensive documentary on the subject matter, the phenomenon, which I titled "The Debate Isn't Whether UFOs Are Real, the Debate Is What Are They?" And of course, my pinned 20-pager on seeking the origin of UFOs. But my Substack actually serves as a gateway to my broader research with vast spreadsheets and other social media posts attached to every article I publish. And speaking of compelling cases, the 1996 Virginia, Brazil incident was one of the first cases that truly opened my understanding after watching James Fox's documentary Moment of Contact and the Joe Rogan episode in 1976. And the Virginia case represents what many researchers consider Brazil's Roswell incident. And what makes this case so compelling is the number of credible witnesses, including military personnel, hospital staff, and civilians who all reported seeing strange beings after a UFO crash. Three young women encountered one of these entities at close range, and their testimonies remain consistent to this day. A military officer, Marco Cherese, who handled one of these beings, allegedly died from a mysterious infection weeks later with recorded unknown neurotoxins. And I've analyzed this case through multiple sources, including the documentary as well as the Y-Files investigation. And the evidence includes hospital records, military testimonies, and physical traces that suggest something truly extraordinary happened in this small Brazilian town. And I probably shouldn't even mention this, but we value authenticity here at This and That. And I recently traveled to Brazil a few months ago and personally had a chance interaction with a high-ranking member of the Brazilian government. I'm leaving that intentionally ambiguous, but very high-ranking. And as the night was getting late and drinks were flowing, I figured I had nothing to lose. And all I asked was, "Have you ever heard of the town Varginha?" And his direct response right after I said that, he stared into my soul and said, "The UFO shit is crazy. That's all I'll say." And then he walked away. I figured I had to do my best James Fox impression, but that reaction and response meant a lot to me. Here is just one example of the spreadsheet system for just one case. A big part of my media brand revolves around creating these comprehensive resource guides like this. For the Virginia case alone, I've compiled dozens of sources across all media types, from documentaries and podcast episodes to news clips and academic articles. And I've done this systematically and at scale for over 40 major UFO cases, organizing the best content by type and credibility. And this approach allows anyone interested in the topic to efficiently access quality information rather than falling down random YouTube rabbit holes. And I think these resource pages have become some of the most popular content on my platforms because they provide structure to what otherwise can be a super overwhelming topic. And here is the This and That Spotify curated playlist on the most profound cases and relevant theories from the most trusted sources. Again, I've accumulated and organized a vast number of podcasts by category and case. I want to especially highlight the Weaponized podcast hosted by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. Those two guys are investigative journalists and filmmakers who have been instrumental in the declassification of UFO information over the past decade, and they also participated in the recent congressional hearings. And of course, I have to acknowledge the podfather, Joe Rogan, for featuring virtually all of the most important voices in UAP disclosure on his show, including Commander David Fravor, who witnessed the famous Tic Tac UFO, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Christopher Mellon, whistleblowers David Grush, Navy pilot Ryan Graves, former AA-TIP Director Luis Elizondo, abductee Travis Walton, and the legendary researcher Jacques Vallée. And now I'm giving you a glance into my Letterboxd, where I have the top UFO documentaries ranked and reviewed. My personal top three recommendations for anyone starting their research journey would be The Phenomenon by James Fox, which I mentioned, that provides probably the most comprehensive overview of UFO history. The Program, which investigates the Pentagon's secret UFO study efforts, and The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It by Stephen Greer, which explores how advanced technology may have been suppressed for decades. I think these three films feature testimony from high-ranking military officials, pilots, and government insiders that's difficult to dismiss. Here is the cover art picture of my articles reviewing James Fox's The Phenomenon, as well as his appearance on Joe Rogan. And in these two pieces alone, over 30 significant UFO cases are mentioned, providing an excellent starting point for anyone's research. I'm not going to list all of the cases, but pause the video now. Take a look at all of those mentioned right there in the middle of the screen. From 1947 Roswell to Westall, Australia, to the 2004 USS Nimitz, to aerial school Zimbabwe. Um, These cases are particularly compelling because of the quality and quantity of witnesses, often supported by radar data, physical evidence, and official documentation. And here is the guide to understanding James Fox, who has established himself as the premier documentary filmmaker in the UFO world. His work stands out for its journalistic integrity and focus on credible witnesses and documented cases. And beyond his films like The Phenomenon, Moment of Contact, and I Know What I Saw, Fox has also appeared on numerous major media outlets and podcasts advocating for transparency. And this guide collects his best interviews, clips, and articles for those wanting to understand his research process and findings. He has interviewed hundreds of military witnesses, government officials, and scientific experts over his decades-long career, building relationships that have helped bring previously classified information to light. And so my spreadsheet system is not just UFO cases, but also the most important people within the UFO phenomenon. Now, take a sneak peek into my Amazon storefront with the most important books on the phenomenon. I've compiled over 60 of the most important books on the phenomenon, and I want to highlight Dreamland, which tells Bob Lazar's controversial story of working on an alleged extraterrestrial craft at S4 near Area 51, which is written by the respected journalist George Knapp. And another essential read is Imminent by the former AA tip director Luis Elizondo. That was the Pentagon's program, and he resigned from his leadership position in the Pentagon out of disgust with the lack of transparency. And the book details the government's alleged multi-decade crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, which insiders have called Immaculate Constellation. And these two firsthand accounts from credible sources provide context that mainstream reporting often lacks. And my YouTube channel features some of the most informative and compelling videos on the phenomenon, from Navy pilots describing their encounters on 60 Minutes to declassified Department of Defense footage, documentary trailers, and full congressional hearings. I've organized dozens of playlists covering over 30 significant cases, making it easy to find quality content on specific incidences or witnesses. And my channel includes exclusive interviews with researchers and witnesses, analysis of government documents, and breakdowns of the most technically interesting UFO encounters. And this visual evidence, particularly the authenticated military footage, definitely offers something that written accounts simply cannot convey. Welcome to the This and That Information Catalogs, aka the spreadsheet system. The past couple of years, as I've descended deeper into this rabbit hole, I've created extensive information catalogs, organizing the best content on the phenomenon. And my spreadsheet system categorizes resources by case, by theory, or by key figure, then further breaks down the best podcasts, documentaries, clips, social media posts, articles, academic papers, books, etc., all in one place. And this system has evolved into a comprehensive database that allows users to quickly find credible information on any aspect of the UFO topic. While I initially created this for my own research, sharing it has connected me with other serious investigators and witnesses who have contributed additional valuable resources. And lastly, we got this and that phenomenon.com. I've just launched this website, which serves as the central hub connecting all these resources. The site features embedded documentaries, podcast episodes, news clips, and organized links to all the research materials we've discussed today. I've designed it to be accessible to newcomers while providing depth for serious researchers. And the site will be regularly updated as new information emerges, especially in light of ongoing developments with the congressional hearings and whistleblower testimonies. And so my goal here is to create the most comprehensive and credible UFO resource online, cutting through both the government secrecy and the noise of misidentifications and hoaxes to present the truly compelling evidence. The debate isn't whether they're real. The debate is, what are they?